be it education, be it sports, or be it investments. So today we would be talking about the basics of financial planning. Can we have the slide, please?
Yes.
There are basically 5 stages of financial planning. So I would run through all the 5 stages so that you'll understand where you are standing and where you are lacking. After that, probably we can have a detailed discussion on the questions if you have any. All right. The sports or be it investments. So today we would be talking about the basics of financial planning. Can we have the slide, please?
Yes.
There are basically 5 stages of financial planning. So I would run
Just
through
give me
all
one
the
second.
5 stages so that you'll understand where you are standing and where you are lacking. After that, probably we can have a detailed discussion on the questions.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah. So do you have a Stephanie? So generally, whenever we go for a long journey or whenever we're traveling, we always make sure that we have a Stephanie. Whether if there's a car, definitely it has to be a backup Stephanie in our boot space, right? So in the similar fashion, when I say do you have a Stephanie, what I mean in the financial language is, do you have an emergency fund, an adequate emergency fund in case of any hurdles or unforeseen things in your life? In the recent times, we have all seen that how pandemic has troubled us and disturbed us, right? People have lost jobs, people have lost, they could not have they could not run their business properly in those kind of pandemic times. Not only in those kind of pandemic times, it can be anything, in our day-to-day life also there could be so many hurdles. So in all kind of such situations, we need to have an emergency fund. When I say an emergency fund, what is a appropriate amount of having an emergency fund? We need to have at least minimum is 3 months, max is to 12 months of your monthly expenses. When I say monthly expenses, let's say your monthly income is 1 lakh rupees. So in that case, you need to have minimum of 3 lakhs and max is 12 lakhs of your monthly income in your emergency fund. And having said this, I'm not saying that immediately go and park your 3 lakhs or 12 lakhs of money in the emergency fund. Slowly and gradually, you have to make sure that you get to that figure of 3 months or 12 months. That is the kind of emergency fund one needs to have in case of any kind of unforeseen things or unforeseen situations or any kind of hurdles in our day-to-day life. That is the first basic step for to have a financial free life in ourselves, in our journey. And where you have to, most of the people ask that some people would definitely have this kind of an emergency fund, but most of the people, what they do is they either park their emergency fund in a savings account or probably an FD. What I suggest to all my generally to my clients is it's always good to park your emergency fund in a there's something called a liquid fund and mutual fund. So it's always good to park your emergency fund in a liquid fund so that you'll not touch that on a whenever you want it. Generally what happens is if you park your money in savings accounts, and there is humans are have the tendency of impulse buying, and suddenly you go to a big mall and you find something fancy and you like to buy that. You have that impulse buying nature. In order to avoid that, when you have money in your account, then definitely you feel that tendency to use that money. If at all, if you don't have that money in your savings account, instead you park that in a liquid fund, what happens is you will not have the access of using that money. Why? Because it is a different process. There is a different process in order to redeem that particular money, and you can use that particular money only in the case of emergency. So that's the reason I always suggest that please park your money in a liquid fund so that you avoid having that impulse buying tendency. At the same time, the good thing is you get an extra 2 or 3% than your savings account or your FD. So that is the reason I always suggest my clients that please park your emergency fund in a liquid fund.
So
Then now,
Praveen, I want to ask a question over here.
please.
What are the kind of liquid funds which are available in the market? Because now you're saying it is better to park this financial security amount in a liquid fund, right?
Yeah.
So what are the different kinds of liquid funds which are available in the market, and what are the things that people should look out for if they have to put in a liquid fund? If you can explain that.
Yeah. See, there are different kinds of liquid funds, like, there are debt funds, arbitrage funds, and so many other funds are there. But, if your duration is less, I mean, generally liquid funds are parked for a short-term duration. If it is 3 months, 6 months, or max is 1 year, then only you have to park those kind of funds in liquid funds. Otherwise, it is not advisable to keep those kind of funds in liquid fund.
So, but usually financial security fund is something that we don't want to touch until unless there is an emergency.
Correct.
Right? Usually we assume there are no emergencies and we are parking that until unless some major thing happens, right? So in that case, is liquid funds recommended, or what do you recommend in that case?
It again depends on person to person. Why? Because a person who is risk averse, I would can take little bit of risk taking capacity if he is having. Then we would suggest a different fund, but not in a liquid fund. If a person is so very conservative in investment approach, then I would suggest them to park their money in liquid funds. Otherwise, it is not necessary that it has to be parked in a liquid fund. If he is able to take that little risk, then we have different funds wherein they can park their funds in park their emergency fund in a different fund.
Perfect. So is it clear, guys? Where do you park your security amount? It depends on your risk-taking ability, basically, right? If it is for 3 to 6 months duration, like for example, you're saving money regularly. So our students at Fortune Academy, every single morning, look at their expenses and they try to save money. And they have certain goals. By the end of this 1 month, I need to save this amount of money. By end of 6 months, I want to save this amount of money. Okay. So in that case, they're looking for different options where they can put this money safely. So that they'll use it only in case of emergency. That is the goal, basically.
Okay. So the good part of a liquid fund is not related to market. So whatever the market is, but still, their money is safe. That is a key point. That is the reason, we advise people to put their, emergency fund in liquid fund, so that they'll not lose on the principal. At the same time, they can make little extra interest than the other sources which are available, like savings account or FD.
Yeah. So can you say the percentage difference between savings account, FD, and liquid fund?
Yeah, savings, as you know, it will give you not more than 3 to 3.5%. Whereas in liquid funds you can easily generate approximately between 6 to 7%. And it is easy to liquidate. Let us say, if a person wants to redeem 50,000, he can easily redeem that in just half an hour, 30 minutes. If it is anything more than that, then he has to wait for just 1 day.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the second stage, can we go back to the slide? Yeah, the second stage is, in this slide, if you see, is your family secured, and can you leave your home and go without a security guard? What I mean is, do you or have you protected your family enough? When I say have you protected your family, or do you love your family the most, then what I'm trying to say is, have you sufficiently insured yourself in case of you not being there in this world? In case of your absence, can your family survive or maintain the same lifestyle even in your absence? In fact, when I say in your absence, the breadwinner's absence. So what is that one has to do? There's something called. It's very evident that what I'm talking about. I'm talking about insurance, and what insurance I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a term insurance. Unfortunately, in India, insurance has been sold wrongly. Why? Because it has always been linked with a savings plan. But that is not the actual insurance. The actual insurance is term insurance. Why? Because term insurance comes with a larger cover, with a very less premium. For example, if I have to give you an example, for a 30-year-old guy, if he wants to go for a cover of 1 CR, all that he has to pay is just 15K, 15 to 20K approximately per annum is what I'm talking about. Whereas if you are going for a traditional policies like all the traditional endowment policies which you find it in the market, wherein those kind of policies, what happens is the coverage what you get out of your premiums is hardly 10 to 11 times. Let's say you are paying a premium of 1 lakh per annum, so hardly you will be covered for just 10 lakhs or 11 lakhs. So you yourself ask a question for yourself that if something happens to the breadwinner, does that 10 lakhs or 11 lakhs would make your family happy? I mean, happy in the sense, can they lead the same lifestyle when you were around? Obviously the answer is no, right? So instead of that, having a right term insurance is very, very important. Why? Because the coverage what you get is in larger portion, and at the same time the premiums what you would be paying is very, very less. And here the another thing which most of the people avoid taking term insurance is why? Because there is a myth. It's not a myth, in fact it is true that after you paying premiums for a longer period, you end up getting you don't get anything at the end of the day if nothing happens to the breadwinner. Okay, so that only because of that reason most of the people avoid taking term insurance. But in the real sense, and the actual thing what everyone has to do is they have to go for a term insurance rather than buying a traditional policy or endowment policy which is linked to savings. In order to make some good money out of your savings, then there are several other products. Instead of wasting your hard-earned money in putting those traditional policies, it's always good that you have a adequate insurance coverage through this term insurance policy, so that even in the case of the absence of your breadwinner, the family will definitely lead the same lifestyle. Though we will not be able to replace the human loss, but definitely we will be able to replace the financial loss.
So Praveen, one question that I'm having over here is, what are the tax implications for liquid funds?
Liquid funds in recently the government has removed the indexation benefit, and it is straight away 20%. If it is a long-term gain, if it is short-term, it is 30%.
So for liquid fund, if we are parking for a period of 3 to 6 months, what is the tax implication?
30%.
30%. Okay. And that's the same in case with FD and
FDs is related to the tax slab which a person is following.
Okay. But for liquid fund specifically, it is 30%, is it?
Yeah, if it is a short term.
Yeah, short-term liquid fund, 3 to 6 months period. Okay, perfect. So, so now we are done with where do you park your funds for temporary phase? Yes.
Yes.
And the second thing is the term insurance. Yes.
Correct.
Dear Diamonds, all of you, do you have term insurance? Yes.
How many people have term insurance?
Term insurance. Go ahead and type in the chat box. How many of you are actually having term insurance?
Yeah. So people have, okay.
Okay, Manoj has, Jagdish has. Whoever doesn't have, type in I don't. Because you can reach out to. This is a very, very important thing that Praveen is talking about. Yes. Yeah. So, so when we are taking a term insurance, typically, what is the ratio of term insurance that we should be taking? Like,
see, the calculation
like
is
people just simply take some random amount. No, someone is forcefully selling and they just take a random amount.
Correct. See, most of the people think that 1 CR is a ideal figure. That is what most of the people think. But the actual calculation is, it has to be 10 to 25 times of your annual income. Let's say your annual income is 20 lakhs. It has to be 2 CR. Minimum is 2 CR and can go to 5 CR. But and the other way of taking term insurances, you need to calculate your liabilities and all, what kind of liabilities you have. Based on all these factors, we have to think of the coverage, decide the coverage. And again, the one more disadvantage thing about term insurance is not everybody can take term insurance, because it is linked to your source of income. What kind of a source of income you have? It is purely based on your eligibility.
So, for example, for a business owners, the income is not consistent every month.
Yeah.
So, how do they take a term insurance?
For business owners, it is all it depends on the ITR they are filing up. Based on that, it's nothing to do with their monthly flow of income.
Okay. Perfect. So, Yeah. Is this clear, guys, with respect to your term insurance? Yes,
Name
for
your question.
salaried professional, it's very easy. But for a business owner, we don't have any office or HR policies which are pushing us towards making it happen. So we need to be self-educated and make it happen. Yes. Is there any age criteria is what they're asking?
So any person who is salaried or who is earning money, that is the only criteria. Age is definitely after above 18 years.
So if someone has already insurance where the return is very, very less, right? They're just paying 30,000 per year and the return is not very high. Can they top up, or what do they need to do with respect to term insurance?
No, I think you're talking about a traditional policy. When you're talking about return in insurance, it is nothing but a traditional policy. You don't have an option of topping up. Why? Because a traditional insurance policy and a term insurance are completely different. In term insurance, you don't get any returns as such. Yeah, it is pure coverage, risk coverage.
Okay, so term insurance is purely risk coverage shift. Though you have a traditional policy, you better take a pure term insurance so that it can take care of your family's needs in case of any emergency. Yes, perfect. So should I show the slide?
Yeah, someone is asking till what age we can term it. Yeah, this is another very important question which has to be addressed. Like what age it is. It depends on. See, generally in India, uh, when we are out of our responsibilities, people when we have our children growing up and when they are on their own legs, like when they are completing their education and when they are started doing their jobs, that's when we are out of the responsibility of taking care of the children, right? That is, so typically it is like till 60 years, 60 or 65 is the maximum age one can take. But most of the people in the market, they say that take it for 100. Term insurance can be taken for 100 years also, but that is not advisable. 65 max is till 70 years you can go for a term insurance, and remaining part, all those calculations which there are so many other logical things which I can't tell you over in this session. But uh, people will say that what if I'm not there when I am after 60, and my wife would be dependent on that. In that case, what happens? If I'm not taking till 80 or 90 or 100. So for that, there is a different solution, different strategy, which we can explain only on one-on-one basis. But ideally, 65 to 70 is the ideal age for, or till that age, one can take term insurance, not beyond that.
Perfect. Jagannath is asking, which company gives up to 20 to 25 times term insurance coverage? Which company is recommended? This is a question that most people are asking.
Which company gives? It
Yeah.
is. I didn't get his question actually. Which company gives the term insurance? Is he asking?
Which company gives 20 to 25 times our annual income coverage?
Okay. You're in. See, there are several companies in the market. We have nearly about 24 insurance companies. It all depends on your pay slips. Your other factors are there. Based on that only we can decide. We can't just tell that this company doesn't. It is purely based on your ITRs or salary slips and other bank statements and your profile.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Okay, go for this.
Yeah. Someone is saying, yeah, they will only give 15 times. Yeah, you are absolutely correct. But I was not talking about a company giving 20 to 25 times. I was talking about you need to have a term insurance coverage of 10 to max is 25 times or 20 times. That is what I was talking about. I was not talking about you get a cover of 20 to 25 times of your annual income. So just for your clarification, I have clarified that. Okay. The next thing is how many people can guarantee that you'll never fall sick, or you'll never get ill, or you will never meet with an accident. That is definitely nobody can say that because our health is very, very uncertain, and you never know what happens. In order to avoid this scenario, one need to have a adequate health insurance policy. How much of health insurance cover is required in today's time? I'm sure, as you have seen, the hospital bills are rising like anything. In order to match that, one needs to know, as a family, one needs to have at least a minimum is uh, 10 lakhs. Over that, a top up can be taken of 25 lakhs. That is the kind of coverage one needs to have as a family. Or if you can afford, then you can even have 25 lakhs as an individual. So that would be even more better. But in today's time, it is much needed of that kind of a coverage. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. You never know what happens with your health. Just in case, to avoid such kind of scenarios, you don't want to. The main reason to have a health insurance policy is, the first main reason is, you should not burn out your pockets. When I say burn out your pockets, don't spend all your hard-earned money, right? You must be saving so much of money, and suddenly you fall ill or you get hospitalized, all your savings will go in one single shot, right? In order to avoid such kind of situations, it's always good to have a health insurance policy, so that you'll not burn out your hard-earned savings. That is so. Please, if you have any questions on this.
Maushmi says she has 8 lakhs each, me and her 2 kids, plus 25 lakhs rider.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that good coverage?
That's a good coverage. That's a good coverage.
Okay, perfect. That's a good coverage. So another question that I'm having here on YouTube is how to evaluate the performance of a mutual fund?
How to evaluate the performance of him? I think we are going out of the way. Let's complete this, and after that we can take those kind of questions. Or what do you say?
No, I'm fine with that. Yes.
Yeah.
You want me to move to the next one?
Yeah. Yeah. Now comes the most important part of the stage of the financial planning is how many people know that your child will become a doctor or an astronaut or a army officer or a navy officer. It can be anything. Nobody knows what your kid will become in the future, right? So in order to make sure that you have the adequate amount of corpus for your child to become what they want to become, you need to start planning for yourself early. And how do you plan this? See, most of the people do a lot of investments and savings, but they don't know what they are doing it for. The first and foremost important thing, especially in investments, is you need to have a proper goal. And what are the three primary goals for any individual, any responsible individual? What are the three primary goals one has? I'm sure everybody will agree with me that the first is children's education, the second is children's marriage, and one's own retirement. And among these three, if I have to ask you which comes on the top list, can anyone answer? Among these three, which comes on the top list? Among these three primary financial goals?
Child education and retirement.
Great. So definitely, my choice is definitely retirement. Why? Because unfortunately in India, nobody takes care of their own retirement. They always, especially in India, we always worry about our children's education and marriage, and we tend to not avoid, and basically we tend to think about our retirement at a very later stage of our life. But what I suggest is, it's always the other way around. First you need to think about your retirement. Why? Because nobody in this world would like to depend on our kids. At the same time, nobody in this world would like to work till their last breath. Yes or no? Yes. So for that reason, one is to start, planning for their retirement at a very early age. And the other primary goal which I was talking about is children's education. Here, what I want to emphasize on is we all plan something for our children. Some people take policies, some people do some FDs and all stuff. But how exactly you have to plan for your children's education? Answer me. I have a small question. What is the cost of an engineering seat in today's time? Give me a cost, a rough cost, an approximate cost of an engineering seat in today's time. A good engineering seat, can anyone tell me? Roughly around 15, 2 to 5 lakhs. Yeah. Today's cost, right? So today, if you want to get your kid do his graduation or engineering in a premier institute, it will roughly cost between 10 to 15 lakhs. So what we have to do is we have to keep not this 10 to 15 lakhs in mind. Why? Because if your child is 1 year old now, when we require a big corpus for their education, only when they finish their intermediate, that's it. That means around 18, 19 years. So we have nearly about 18 years of time. So you have to analyze, you have to calculate what will be the cost of this 15 lakhs after 18 years. Why? Because keeping inflation in mind and inflation calculation, you have to calculate that particular figure. This 15 lakhs will roughly become around four or five times or more than that. So we need to plan for that instead of thinking of just, okay, if I save 15, 20 lakhs, that should be sufficient for my kids' education. That is not the way of planning. The right way of planning is we need to calculate what exactly this 15 lakhs will become after 15 years or 18 years, whatever the time duration you have for your kid. And then we have to start planning for your children's education. In a similar way, it's the weddings. These days most of the kids are wanting to have big fat weddings. They want to have destination weddings and all. So are you prepared for it? Because earlier in our days, people used to be very reluctant on not having a big, large or big fat weddings and all. If it is okay if you do your wedding in a normal, sober way also. But today, in today's time, the kids have very, very ambitious desires. So are you prepared for it? If you want your, especially your daughter kid, to have a destination wedding, then start planning from today onwards. And the third thing is retirement. How do you plan for your retirement? First of all, we need to calculate what are your monthly expenses for today. You need to know what your monthly expenses is. When I say your monthly expenses, they don't add your loans and school fees. Why? Because when you are at 60 or 55, whatever age you want to get retired, obviously when you are at 55 or 60 years, you don't have your children's school fees burden on you. At the same time, you don't have, most of the time, you will not be having any loans as such at that time. So you have to eliminate or exclude those loans and school fees and take the actual monthly expenses what you're occurring right now, and based on that you have to add inflation to it, and then see what is the amount of expense you will be incurring at that time, that is at 55 or 60, and then you have to plan for your retirement. That is how one has to plan for your retirement. So this is how one has to plan for your financial goals. These are the three primary financial goals, and after that you can have many other goals like planning for a vacation or buying a villa or buying a luxury car. It can be many, but first if you are uh, good with these three primary financial goals, and after that you can think about all those desired goals. So anybody have any questions on these?
So I got a question asking regarding the previous one. What kind of health insurance is recommended for a 35-year-old mother with single child?
What kind of a health insurance is
Recommended for a 35-year-old mother with a single child?
They can go for a floater plan.
Okay, perfect. So regarding retirement, when someone has to plan.
1 minute. Let me give you a little more elaborative answer. Why? Because see, health insurance comes. There are several health insurance plans, but you need to always go for a health insurance plan. Though it is little costlier, but you should always go for a premium plan so that you'll not have to spend anything from your pocket. There are so many factors like co-pays and sublimits are there. But instead of choosing those kind of plans, wherein the premium will be less, but you have to pay from your pocket. Instead, go for a premium plan so that you do not have to pay anything from your pocket. At the same time, it is more it is cashless actually. So it's always good to go for a premium plan rather than a little lesser premium plan.
Is there a calculation when we're taking health insurance with respect to the salary that we are earning versus what kind of health insurance we can take? Is there a calculation on that?
No. For health insurance, there is no calculation. Why? Because you never know what kind of a incident can happen with you. You know, if you fall sick, you never know. Like it can be a heart related thing or a kidney related thing, and you know what is the kind of expenses one has to incur, especially the medical expenses. The medical expenses are very costly, so it's always good to have a adequate health insurance. And there is no calculation as such, but as I told you, having a 25 lakh of coverage for an entire family should be ideal enough to start. You know, on top of that, you know, why? Because these days we are getting super top of plans also, wherein the premium is very less. What you can do is you can take a base plan of just 10 lakhs, and on top of that, you can even take a super top of a 1 year also. So in that case, what happens is your premium will come down, and the burden will be less on you.
Oh, that's really cool. 10 lakh plan plus super top of 1 CR. That is like, and at such a very low price, basically.
Correct.
Perfect. So, Praveen, I want to ask you this question. If I'm investing for a long term, for my retirement, okay, what kind of mutual fund is recommended? And how do we evaluate the performance of a mutual fund when we are planning for retirement?
Okay. See, retirement is something which is very long, you know, especially when it again depends on what kind of a person. The first answer itself, what I said to you earlier, that, you know, it is completely depend on a person, what kind of a risk appetite he or she has. If a person is having let's say, you know, if a person is 30-year-old, you know, let us assume that, you know, I'm a 30-year-old and I am a risk averse person, I can take risk. So in that case, a person can go for a 100% equity funds, as it is a long term thing. Why? Because 30 years, you have another 30 years, anything which is long term will definitely give you great returns. And but if you are looking at a calculation, so generally the calculation is, you know, 100 minus the age. So that portion has to go in equities. Let's say, you know, if a person is 40-year-old, 100 minus 40 is 60% has to go in equities.
Perfect. So, lot of people take insurance for kids' education, right? There is one of our viewers who's paying 15,000 of insurance for kids' education. What do you think about that?
Insurance for kids' education. Can you, if a person is there here, can you ask him what exactly is the insurance he has taken for him? Like, is he taken a policy for kids' education, or is he taken an insurance for paying that?
He's not taken an insurance for paying the policy. No, they have taken
An insurance policy.
Insurance policy for kids' education, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Again, see, as I told you, this is depends on their one's own interest. Actually, you know, if a person is not keen on taking the risk, you know, especially when it comes to children's education policies or investments, I always recommend, if there is a couple who's just married and planning for the kid, you know, I always recommend them to go for an SIP rather than, you know, putting their money in insurance policies. Why? Because insurance policies, if you look at the end of the day, the kind of returns what they give you is not more than 6 to 7%, which is not even beating inflation. The first and most important criteria one has to do when you're doing an investment, it has to beat inflation. In India, today's inflation is nearly about 6 to 8%. So if you are not able to beat your investment returns, if you're not able to beat inflation of your investment returns, then there's no point in investing. That means you're wasted a long period of time. So it is always good to that, you know, especially when your kids are small, it's always good to invest their money in equity SIPs so that, you know, it can serve the purpose, at the same time they can create wealth for themselves.
Absolutely. You're so spot on in that. You know, imagine taking an insurance plan which is not even giving 6% return for kids' education. And that too, most people start saving the moment the kid is born. Like any gifts are given, anything, they keep putting it. And insurance, I don't think is a great place to put that money, because your biggest advantage in India is inflation. Right? Because the crazy amount of inflation, I feel, is a very big advantage. While most people think it's a negative thing, for investors, it's a massive advantage because let it be real estate, let it be mutual fund, there is a massive advantage that we have with respect to inflation if we are investors. If you are not investors, then you're fighting against inflation. But if we are investors, then inflation is working in our favor more than anything else.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So,
So that another thing which I want to tell you is when you are doing an insurance policy for your kids, so you're binded there. You have a lock-in period of nearly about 15 to 20 years. Some policies there wherein you get some redemption after 5 years or 6 years. That's a different thing. But on the whole, you have a lock-in period and your money is stuck there. Whereas if you're doing an SIP, equity mutual fund or any SIP, then you're not stuck. There is no lock-in period as such. If at all suddenly you have an emergency, you can always liquidate that. Whereas in the case of insurance, you'll not be able to liquidate. And as I told you in my last slide, instead of buying that insurance, it's always good to go for a term insurance and put this money in equity SIP so that it can serve your purpose. At the same time, it can reach your goal at a faster pace. If you see, simple, there is something called the rule of 72. What the rule says is, if you are investing in an insurance policy, as I told you, the insurance policy will give you a returns of roughly around 6 to 7%. So if your money has to if I have to calculate the number of years or number of times, if you calculate it by 72, the rule of 72 says 72 by 6%. So that means if you are putting a 1 lakh rupees, it will take 7 years. Whereas if the same thing, if you are putting in mutual funds, and the mutual funds are roughly given between, the worst has given 12%, 10 or 12% it has given, and it has even given 18-20% returns also. But let us, on a conservative side, let's say that 12% returns it has generated. So you are reaching the goal at a much faster pace. That is, you are reaching the goal in just 5 years rather than waiting for such a long time. That is the key. So you have to choose which vehicle will suit for you.
Perfect. That makes so much more sense. Guys, do you understand? This is a very, very crucial point that he's talking about, and this is very important for us to be financially aware about the point that he's speaking. Manoj, can you ask the question that you're asking?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I have three questions. First one is, most of the people in our country don't think to take insurance because the premiums are really high. If they take in the early age of 20s, the premiums will be very less. But if they take after 30s, the premiums will be more than 50 or 60,000. So most of the people don't think about it, and they don't go for insurance. So, sir, what you suggest if a person is taking insurance first time, and how he or she can manage their finances so that they can pay the premium on time for the next year, and it should not become a burden for them. This is my first question.
Okay. So I'm sure you're talking about term insurance, right?
Yeah. Whether it can be a term insurance, pure term insurance, or a combo, whatever.
See, if it is a term insurance, let me clarify this, that your premiums will be the same till your last tenure date. That means you are a 30-year-old guy, you are going for a 1 year cover, so your premium will be approximately around 15,000, and this will remain the same till whatever tenure you have taken. So there is no question of you feeling a burden on it. Why? Because if you see, year on year, you'll definitely have your income growing up, right? So there is no question of you having a burden of paying your premiums back. That is one thing. And it is always advisable to go for a regular premium rather than going for a 5 pay or a 10 pay. In term insurance, you have options like 5 pay and 10 pay, but that is not advisable. Why? Because there are other logics and things wherein will come into picture. So that is, it's always good to go for a regular premium rather than going for a 5 pay or 10 pay. And what was your next question?
One second, Manoj. Yeah, don't mute yourself, okay? Because you cannot unmute yourself on your own. Yeah.
So, most of the people, if, for example, if a person is earning 50,000 and he's completely packed with his expenses. So, how he can, for example, still if he is paying his first premium, how he can manage his second premium? How he has to plan for the next premium? That is my question. And also, at the end of the tenure, if he gets a lump sum amount, is it okay? Will it be fine if he goes for a simple SIP, or will it be better if he invests that amount in systematic withdrawal plan?
Yeah. So let me answer your second question first. If a person is getting a lump sum amount at the end of the tenure, it is always good to go for a SWP, that is systematic withdrawal plan. Why? Because there what happens is, so generally what people does is, if they get a lump sum amount, they simply go and put their money in an FD. Wherein what happens in FD is you will get monthly interest month on month, but at the same time, once the tenure is completed, you will be just given the principal back. Whereas if you're doing the same thing in SWP, you are not only getting your monthly interest month on month, at the same time, your capital is getting appreciated. So that is the reason one has to go for a SWP option rather than doing a SIP is not. You should not opt for an SIP at that time, right? Because you got a lump sum thing. There is no question of SIP there. So it's always good to go for an SWP. The first thing is, how do you make sure that you pay your premiums year on year? For that, I generally have this solution for all my clients. There is a ratio which I generally say to all my clients, which is 50-30-20 ratio. What this ratio means is 50% of your monthly expenses, monthly income should go for your monthly expenses. When I say your monthly expenses, your rent, your your electricity bills, your phone bills, your petrol, diesel, all that stuff has to go for your monthly expenses. So that means 50%. You're earning, let's say, for example, if you're earning 1 lakh, 50,000 should go for your monthly expenses, and 30% should go for your wants and desires. When I say wants and desires, you must be planning to buy a fancy jewelry for your wife, or you must be planning for a trip, a short trip, or you must be planning to buy a fancy gadget. For all this comes under desires. Desires can be anything. It is upon you. So 30%, that is 30,000, should go for your wants and desires. Where it has to park, it can be discussed later. But this is the strategy one has to follow. And the remaining 20% should go for your long-term savings. When I say long-term savings, it is for your children's education. It can be for your children's marriage and for your own retirement. So that 20,000 should go for these kind of long-term savings. So come what may, if you follow this strategy religiously and holistically, you will definitely be financially free at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering that question. I have one question, because you said it is jewelry, right? In India, most people, if not jewelry, they're going for GLD, or the mutual fund of that. But does it make any sense? The return is like so less. It is just a fancy name. Okay, instead of saving in gold, you go save in gold mutual fund, right? But instead of that, I think it's better to go for a regular mutual fund, where the return will be much higher compared to gold, or these gold bonds, or all of that the government is releasing. Can you throw some light on that?
Sure. See, some people would like to give, when it comes to gold is something which is very emotional to all the Indians, and especially people who have girl child. So what they want to do is, they want to give gold, and they keep on buying in ornament gold. So instead of buying an ornament gold, government has come up with a very good scheme which is called sovereign gold bond. If a person is investing in a sovereign gold bond, first thing is it is very, very safe. It is basically a digital format of investing in sovereign gold. So what happens here is you are buying this in a digital format. So by doing so, what happens is you're not having the hassles of saving it or protecting it by keeping it in lockers or at your home. There is no, you are bound to have this, no security reasons. At the same time, you are getting an extra 2.5% per annum year on year. And the third thing is, you will be, whenever you want, it is basically, it is listed. So what happens is whenever you want to sell it off, you can trade it and sell it off on the on the given day. Whatever the market rate is on that day, you will get the same rate. That is the advantage. The third advantage which you have, especially when you are investing in sovereign gold bonds. And you were asking about why people, instead of investing in gold bonds or gold mutual funds, why not invest in equity mutual funds? It again depends to person to person. If a person wants to give separately for gold only, then they have to choose gold funds or.
But why is my question, Praveen? See, because Indians are emotional, so government has brought about that. But as educated people, our
Yeah.
savings account gives more return than the gold bonds.
Just to have just to keep it on a safer side. That's the reason people go and invest in sovereign gold bonds. Otherwise,
but just look at the logic. Like if we look at the
logic
logic
is absolutely right. What you said is absolutely right.
It's purely an emotional thing that, okay, instead of this, do this. But if you look at it logically, right, the savings account gives much better return than sovereign gold bonds.
No. Sovereign gold bonds will give you whatever the gold rate is.
Price is there at that particular point of time.
Correct.
Right. And then, but better than that is to go with a mutual fund, right? Which is
at the same time, whether he or she will be able to take that kind of a risk or not. That is also
be able to liquidate it or not. But see, if you look at the average performance, 12% is the worst case performance that mutual funds have given.
Correct.
So in that case, if you look at the...
Yes, what you said is absolutely right. It again, I also recommend the same thing. If someone is saying that, I would like to invest in sovereign gold bonds, I say that instead of that, put it in mutual funds so that you can generate.
I strongly believe it is an emotional thing. Okay, so it's very easy to link and tell people go buy gold instead of buying physical gold. It's safe. It's that. It's this. But practically, if you see it and logically, I don't see a rationale behind this thing. So another question here, Praveen, is there a percentage of money?
Yeah, one more thing which I want to add on this sovereign gold bond is people should understand that there is a lock-in period of 8 years. You can't sell it off before 8 years. There is an option of selling it after 5 years, wherein you will not get that taxation benefit. Otherwise, it is 80 years lock-in period.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a very beautiful one. So I strongly think it is better to go, like, it's very emotional for people to sell, for governments to advertise and for banks to advertise. But logically, if you look at it, I don't see any rationale behind going for sovereign gold bonds versus, because your money is getting locked for a certain period of time. And on top of it, it is like the return is nothing compared to what a mutual fund can give.
Generally, people invest just for hedging purpose, just to balance it out.
Right. So another question is there a percentage of money that we need to park in fixed deposit and mutual fund? Like, for example, when we are talking about stock markets, we talk about investing in dividend fund, dividend stocks. We talk about investing in large cap. We talk about investing in asset-based companies. So like that, when we are doing personal finance planning, is there a certain portion of money that should go into fixed deposit? And is there a certain portion which should go into mutual fund in order to diversify the portfolio?
Yes, some portion can be put in FDs just for emergency. That's only because of emergency. Otherwise, we would definitely not recommend FDs. Why? Because for me, personally, I don't recommend FDs at all. Why? Because if you are falling in the 30% bracket, then straight away the taxation is going 30%. So there is no point in investing in FDs. Instead of that, it's always good to park your money in liquid funds rather. But still, if you are feeling if a person is very, very conservative and who is a firm believer of FD, then some portion, just for a short term, they can park in FDs.
Thank you so much for that. Again, on the same note, I wanted to ask you a question. Mutual funds, there are different kinds of mutual funds which are available in the market, right? How do we diversify our mutual fund investment? Like, for example, for kids' education, what we should keep? For our vacation planning, what we should keep? For gold, what should we keep? Like, if we have certain goals and targets, how should we go about it? Like, instead of buying a house, imagine someone is saving the money in a mutual fund, because that gives a better return compared to buying a house. Like for example, practically. So how should we diversify our mutual fund ratio? You as an expert will be guiding people one-on-one. There is no doubt about it. But overall general, guys, I strongly recommend you should always have a financial planner. who can guide you with respect to where you need to park your investments rather than doing it on your own. It's not something that you just pick up on the marketplace. According to me, I strongly have financial planners, and that is the way I think it should go. So, Praveen, what do you would recommend with respect to this?
It basically depends on what kind of a goal they have. Is it a short-term goal or a long-term goal or a medium goal? Based on that, we would recommend the funds. It is purely on the goal tenure and the risk appetite.
So, what are the drawbacks of investing in SIP?
See, drawbacks, there are very less drawbacks. There are many more advantages. But if as you're asking for a drawback, the only drawback is market volatility. Person who is not keen on or not understanding what is market volatility, for a person who is little scared about markets, for him or her, that is the only drawback. And the second drawback is people are these days, as we all see, it's all DIY notion which is going on. So for them, they feel that I can do it much better than the fund manager, and I can save that expense ratio, whatever the expense ratio is. Those are the two major drawbacks which most of the people see upon. Otherwise, SIP is definitely a path to wealth creation. Why? Because it will create a habit for you, saving habit, at the same time investing habit. At the same time, you will have a disciplined approach to your investments, and you will be able to reach your financial goals much faster.
So, how do we evaluate a mutual fund?
See, how do you evaluate a mutual fund? In India, there are 44 AMCs. When I say AMCs, asset management companies, in that there are several schemes. Every mutual fund company has many. They come up with many schemes, like for example, L&D mid cap fund, large cap fund, flexi cap fund, multi cap fund, all this. So all these are called schemes. It is very, very difficult for an individual to pick which scheme is good. For that, only we come into picture. If I have to answer you in broadly, how to pick how to evaluate a mutual fund? First thing is, you need to see the past performance, and we need to see who is the fund manager, what is the size of the aim of that particular fund, and whether it is performing consistently or not. The key is that particular fund performing consistently or not? That is the most important factor one has to look at it, especially when someone is picking up a mutual fund scheme. Other than that, there are so many other several parameters which we need to look in, which that is all more technical thing.
Okay. So should we take advice from bank fund manager or private financial planner? What should be a good thing to do?
It is this is a question which you feel that I'm being biased, but obviously a professional financial consultant will be helping you in achieving your financial goals. He'll always be there. Whereas a bank fund manager, he will not assist you day in and day out. If you have a financial consultant, a dedicated financial consultant for you, he will look after all your funds. He will look after your portfolio. He will track your portfolio. He will review your portfolio consistently. Whereas a bank guy will definitely not be able to do all that stuff. That is what I feel.
And also, I strongly think, bank guys would recommend only their products.
Correct.
Right? Whereas there are 44 AMCs which are available.
Right.
And, financial planner or financial consultant has a overall holistic
wide range of AMCs or schemes available, and he will able to tell you which one is good for you, based on your goal and risk appetite. Whereas, generally, any bank would definitely promote their own product, right? So you'll not have an opportunity
for doing this session, Praveen, I have spoken to close to 12 to 15 mutual fund managers, distributors, financial planners, consultants. Like literally in the last 15 days, I've spoken to so many people, right? And I chose you because you were having a holistic picture, right? I spoke to insurance-based mutual fund managers. I spoke directly bank-related mutual fund managers. Like there's so many different kinds of fund managers which are available, right? And if we are not aware of what are the options which are there in the market, and because we do most of the transactions with a bank or some relative who's behind us for doing some transaction, right? Then our entire financial planning equation may go off.
100% true.
So it's a very, very important step. This is highly neglected in Indian scenario.
Yeah.
And yes, over to you, Praveen. What do you have to say about this?
So what you said is absolutely right. Why? Because a consultant has a reach of all the 44 AMCs, and he has knowledge of all the other funds and schemes and all. Whereas a person who is sticking to one particular bank, he will definitely promote only that product. Majorly, he will definitely promote that product. You will not have that diversification in your portfolio if you are going with a bank-related manager.
On what basis can we decide an insurance company?
The first criteria is if it is a health insurance, or or a term insurance or anything. The first and foremost criteria what we have to decide is how is the claim ratios or claim settlement ratio of that company, and what is their market cap. These are the two factors which one has to look at it when you are deciding a particular insurance company. And it's always good to go for if it is a health insurance, it's always good to go for a standalone health insurance company rather than a company which deals with all the insurances. For example, you have Tata AIG, that is a standalone insurance company wherein it deals with primarily with health insurance. Similarly, like Manipal is there, they only deal with health insurance. Niva Bupa is there, they only deal with health insurance.
Perfect. Any more questions, guys? Because we have come to the end of an hour. Which platform? How do you select? Okay, this is also done. I think whatever questions I've received, I have answered. Finally, one last thing. Comparison between stocks and mutual funds.
Yeah, this is a very common question which most of my clients and investors ask. What is the difference between stocks and mutual funds? Primarily there is no big difference, but stocks is nothing but you are investing your money directly into one particular stock, whereas in mutual funds you have a fund manager for that. It is an indirect way of investing in stocks. Why? Because a fund manager is there in between who will be managing your fund on behalf of you. And let's say if you are investing 100 rupees in stocks, you will be able to buy 10 stocks or 2 stocks, whatever it is. Let's say, for example, if you're buying Infosys and pick any other stock, for 100 rupees. So that means if the market is getting corrected, you will be corrected by 20%. If the IT stock sector is getting corrected by 20%, then your 100 rupees will there are high chances that your 100 rupees will go for 80 rupees. Whereas if the same money is getting invested in mutual funds, your money is not going to one particular stock. It is your 100 rupees is getting diversified into many other stocks. So in that way, what happens is if the market is getting corrected also, your principal amount is not getting affected as it got affected in the stocks. That is the major difference, and one needs to have a lot of experience and knowledge about knowledge when it comes to investing in stocks. Whereas if you are investing in mutual funds, you need not have that kind of a knowledge, because your fund manager is taking care of your particular money. Why? Because he has got immense experience, and at the same time he's got vast team wherein he will search, he will do all the analysis and all the research and all on behalf of you, and make sure that he's giving you better returns for you. That is the main crux of a fund manager, and that is the advantage of investing your money in mutual funds, especially if a person is not so person who doesn't have much time to take care of their investments.
Another question: difference between small case and mutual funds.
Small case and mutual funds. This is like See, mutual funds, as I told you, it is purely based on the fund manager. He will take care of the funds and all the stuff. A small case, it's a basket of funds. They create a portfolio, and they will help you in creating a portfolio based on, again, your risk appetite and time horizon. That is a major difference, actually.
Small case also has consultants, just like mutual fund.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, Ankur, you have a question to ask?
Yeah, good evening, Mani. Thanks for giving an opportunity. Praveen, I have a very simple question for you. When we talk about this term assurance, so is it at par with all of the companies? I mean, the vanilla is the same for them, and just the toppings or icing is there from different companies on the policies, or how do you define it to make it simple for us? Term assurance, precisely.
Term insurance, the fund is the same, but the plans can be different from company to company. Hello.
Yeah, so broadly, it's sorry, I was muted. So broadly, you mean to say it's more or less the same. It is just that some flavors are added on, right?
Right.
Thanks, Praveen.
Is there any surest fund that exists?
No, there is nothing like that. Nobody can predict which fund is good. Why? Because if you see, I'll give you a classic example for this. Can you tell me that in tomorrow's semifinals, will you be able to tell whether Rohit Sharma will hit 100 or Virat Kohli will hit 100? No, right? Nobody can predict. In the similar fashion, the funds are also the same. So in one calendar, one topic will be number one. In the second calendar, there'll be another fund which will be performing well. So all that we have to look at it is how consistent they are performing. That is the key thing one has to look at it. One has to look at when it comes to choosing the funds.
So past performance is the only thing that we can track.
Correct.
So I have one of my students who's invested in more than 10 mutual funds.
Okay.
Is it the right thing to do?
No, to be very honest, it is not the right thing to invest in 10 different funds. Ideally, one has to have a portfolio of nearly about 5 to 7 funds is ideal. 10 funds is a little overboard. We can bring it down to 5 or 6 funds.
Okay, so 5 or 6 funds is something that you would recommend, that we should diversify into at least 5 or 6 instead of going on only one fund and compounding. It is good to have 5 or 6 funds.
Yeah.
Superb. Thank you so much for your time. It's been like really, really informational. Anyone has any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we can wrap up the session. Okay, they're talking about charges.